All right, so we're in the studio with Ellis Redding, a new band about to make their debut next month. So we're just going to get a little background on all the members that are here and talk about the formation of the band and what to expect at their upcoming first couple of shows. So I guess we'll go clockwise here. We'll start with Mike. Just give us a little background on growing up, how you got into singing, how you discovered the local scene, and what brought you here today.
Sure. Well, the first time I ever sang, is that
Sure.
what we're...
Or, what inspired you to sing originally?
Always loved music, grew up on it. My parents were huge music fans. We'd take a couple times a year long, car rides down to Florida with the family, so it was just music the whole way, and I got exposed to everything. Soul, R&B, doo-wop, 60s, 70s stuff, Beatles, Stones, and... that I don't know. It was just one of those things that even though I'd never done it before, I was like, if I ever want to do this, I kind of feel like I could. And then when the opportunity came, I gave it a shot. And 30 years later, here we are.
Yeah. And so how did you discover local music in the hardcore scene?
A buddy of mine took me to see VOD at, I guess it was a Right Track Inn the first time. And I thought we were just going to see a band. I didn't realize there was a whole scene that was wrapped around it at the time. So once I realized that, I was like, so there are these shows often? And he's like, all the time. So that was kind of the kickoff. And then, once I heard Silent Majority and Clockwise, and I realized that it could be melodic as well. It didn't have to be just metally hardcore all the time. I was like, all right, well, now there's a whole, load of different things I can kind of sink my teeth into and see what's up. So VOD was the introduction.
And so Inside had a different name when you first started? I'm trying to remember from the video episode. He kind of gave us the primer on Inside.
Yeah, Inside had a couple of different names before we started, but the night that they chose the name Inside, we had practiced. Donos was there. Oh, really? It was at his studio that he worked at in Hicksville. And there was probably about 7 or 8 consecutive practices where we would stand out in the parking lot afterwards trying to come up with names. And it was always 3 guys loved the name, 2 guys hated it. 2 guys loved the name, 3 guys hated it. And I just got fed up. And I was like, I don't care what you guys call us. I'm done. Just let me know. And I went home, and Eddie called me the next day. He's like, yo, we're going to call ourselves Inside. I was like, great. So I didn't care.
Fine.
As it turned out, the name was fine. It was short. It was catchy. It was easy to remember. It was fine. But I take zero credit for coming up with it. I wasn't even there.
We were saying on a previous episode, that's the only time you ever pronounce Inside that way.
Right.
It's always
Right.
Inside.
Right.
Not Inside.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I would say I do the opposite.
What do you mean?
I pronounce it Inside. I know
Me too, but it's the only time I ever hear
Inside,
people...
the word just lost all of its meaning in my head, saying it 4 times in a row, but yeah.
Yeah, the band is Inside, but any other time it would be Inside.
Correct.
You're coming
Correct.
inside. Yeah.
That is correct. Yeah, man.
Yeah, and so, Inside lasted until the late 90s. Just did a couple of reunions, which were very successful.
Indeed.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
And so, as you were saying, there's a lot of influence growing up. You were listening to a lot of soul and early rock and roll, and you're one of the few hard in the hardcore world singers to sing very smooth and very melodic, as opposed to just even like a Walter Streifels has a melodic scream.
Sure.
But you were
you
really
have a cleaner
singing.
voice.
Yeah.
Than other people would. You get in there from time to time. But,
Right.
yeah.
Right. But
It gets aggressive, but it's it's very smooth and very soulful.
And I think that's, I think it's, that's what I grew up listening to, though. I grew up listening to guys who could sing. I wasn't really listening to anything aggressive, so that was
So that's
just
what
always
I
kind
was
of
going to
there.
ask. Before you got into hardcore, what kind of stuff were you, when you were able to choose your own music to listen to, aside from what your parents playing in the car, what were you getting into?
Honestly, Otis Redding, Sam Cooke, Al Green.
Singy singers.
Yes,
Yeah.
Marvin Gaye, that's really...
So you were where were you in my house? You were somewhere, in my house. I don't know where, you definitely there.
That's where, me singing... almost, I don't want to call them love songs, but me singing more about that stuff, I think came from that, because these guys were always crooning about feelings and women, and they made it sound masculine enough to where I didn't feel weird doing it. everyone else made me feel weird for doing it, but whatever, man. Like, it's what I did, and if that's what I was feeling at the time, and at that age when you're not really trying to pull influence lyrically from somewhere else, you kind of turn inward. That's the only thing you know. And there was a podcast recently that I listened to where somebody kind of broke down the 2-song Inside 7-inch, and he's like, yeah, this guy sounds like like a broken-hearted 20-year-old. I was.
Yeah,
that's
right.
exactly what I was. So that's what those songs
Mission
were.
accomplished,
like,
yeah.
I know. I guess he was kind of poking fun at it, but at the same time, I wish I could have been like.
But it wasn't
what
like
I
the
was,
typical like what emo became, where it was like screaming about "fuck you, you broke my heart." It was very like,
Yeah.
there was a little more depth to it, and a little
And,
more
I
classic love songs.
And I credit the band for that, because they wrote it in such a way that I could, kind of do it that way, and I always let the music dictate, and like some bands get a little frustrated with my process, but I need to let the music tell me what the song is going to be. So it's very different. I don't walk around with a notebook just arbitrarily writing stuff down. I wait for the music to kind of tell me what I think the song should be about, and then it kind of goes from there.
I know people hate comparing bands to other bands, but in my head, I always thought of Inside as Long Island's Texas Is the Reason, in that they're kind of aggressive,
I think
but
that's
there's
accurate.
a clean vocal in that as well, that the super melodic the whole time, but also hits hard when it needs to hit hard.
Sure, I think that's a really good comparison.
Yeah. And then right after that was Dearly Departed.
Dearly Departed, yes. Very different. None of us really knew each other, right?
That's what I was going to ask. How did that come apart? Because I feel like those guys are a bit younger than you.
Jeff and Ryan were younger.
Right.
Danny was older. Joe's my age.
Gotcha.
But I was working at a restaurant out at Smith Haven Mall, and the bartender was like, yo, do you know Joe Rubino? And I was like, kind of. I haven't seen him in a long time. He's like,
Totally forgot Joe was in that band.
He's like, Joe is looking for you. And you don't ever want to hear that. You don't ever want to hear that Joe Rubino's looking for you for no apparent reason.
Uh-huh.
So he's like, yeah, he told me to give me your number. He wants to start a band. And I was like, okay, give him my number. It's all right. And so he had Danny.
Yeah.
And then I found Ryan, and Ryan told us about Jeff. So we kind of pulled Jeff from another band.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's how it kind of started. And the music, I don't know, it was darker than anything I had ever done before. So it was a little bit weird, initially, stepping off that platform that I was kind of comfortable with. But it was fun. Dearly Departed always had a tough time because the scene was very different. When Inside was doing it, the scene was, totally DIY type stuff. But when Dearly Departed, all the bands had broken already.
Yeah.
Taking Back Sunday, all those bands were already huge.
Transitional
so we were
period
working
for
on
the smaller bands on Long Island.
I mean, getting shows was difficult because all the dudes that booked shows were now booking huge shows. They weren't booking VFW halls and bars and whatnot.
You can only play the local 7 so many times.
And we did play it as many times as we possibly
yeah.
could. Yeah.
Did you guys tour at all?
Mm-hmm. Not very successfully. There was a couple of good shows here and there, but again, the scene was so far beyond. What's that? With Inside. Dearly Departed just did kind of locally stuff. We did some Ohio, Pennsylvania, down south a little bit, Florida we got to. But again, the shows were, the good shows were few and far between because, again, all the bands had gotten big.
Yeah.
So we played much smaller
Emo
shows.
became a household word.
That's it. That became the standard. Then,
For better or worse. Yeah.
Yes. Well, in our case, for worse, because we played for very few people. There were, not a lot of great shows. But
Okay. And then later on came Star Harbor. Was there anything in the middle?
I for a little while I sang for this band Novena.
Right.
One of the bass players from Bayside was in it. Fernando Martinez, Tony Maciera, this girl Jade was the drummer. That was fun. I was just not in a position at that point to be in a band because Dearly Departed had just broken up, and I was like, I gotta get my life together. I got to figure out what I'm doing in terms of a job, and am I gonna get married? Am I gonna buy a house and have kids? Blah blah blah. And I just couldn't focus on doing that anymore. So unfortunately, that kind of fizzled out quickly.
Okay. And then Star Harbor comes along, which is still active today.
Mm-hmm.
And with
Very different.
with Tom from Inside.
With Tom from Inside,
Yeah.
yes.
little more mellow, folky.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. We went for like an Americana, kind of country southern rock thing. I don't even know what it's become or what it is now. We just kind of play whatever the hell we want because we don't feel like there's really anything that we need to play to. So we just write whatever we enjoy. It's fun, which I think is kind of a lot of what we do in here. People always, we were talking about this earlier, like people add, what do you sound like? And I just say post-hardcore because I don't want to pigeonhole it because our songs are dynamic. It's fun to play this style again, too. I haven't done this in a while.
Was there a pre-Star Harbor band with what's his name? Anthony, that played bass in Anthrabe?
Yes, yeah, that was Dead of Winter.
There you go.
Yeah,
Oh,
Dead of
yeah,
Winter.
right.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, Fall 86? Fall 85. That
There you
was
go.
the first show we ever played.
I was
Was with you guys.
That's when I was born.
So many ages I deserve.
Yeah,
All right,
that was our first show. We played our first show with them. Yeah,
Cool.
Hell
All
yeah.
right. Sorry, Joe. I'm going to put you on.
you're gonna have to take the mic.
Mike Joe.
All right.
You could keep it as brief or as long as you want.
No, that's cool.
So just give me a little background on yourself, how you discovered the local scene,
I
and
guess,
getting
yeah,
into
how
it.
I got involved. The first real band I was in, I had a guy living around the block. My sister's girlfriend, older brother, played drums, and he knew I played guitar. He was like 25. I was probably like 16. I was really young. But he's like, oh, I'm in this band. He's like, they needed a guitar player, and it was called Discipline. It was like an old hardcore band. I don't know.
You get a little closer on that mic.
Oh,
Sorry.
like Dan Nelson. He actually
I remember the name
He sang for
Discipline.
Anthrax for like a year and a half, and then he had to
Oh.
hold this lawsuit because he wrote some of the songs.
Yeah, I told
He
you.
really great musician, but that was my first band. Like this drummer brought me into that scene. He was like from New Hyde Park. I'm from like Massapequa, so it was like and I'm a young kid. But then, so I was in that band for a while, and then, I just got into like I was doing a lot of hardcore like stuff, but I growing up was like I was more into like folk music. Like I like the storytelling of like I grew up listening to Harry Chapin and Jim Croce, and like that was that's what my folks like. I love the storytelling, like how like Jim Croce could like in like 2 lines like she's living in L.A. with my ex. My old
ex-friend,
yeah,
right.
and in that line, you in so many little words, he told such a big story, that just always intrigued me.
It's crazy that
So-
Jim Croce died at 30.
I love all that.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
became an
So
MOD
I mean,
song.
that musically, that's what like drew me to. But then, when you're a kid, you're angsty.
Sure.
You get into the hardcore bands. It's easier to play that kind of stuff.
So
And
who
then-
in like the hardcore world do you think is like one of the best storytellers as far as
wow.
like a hardcore vocalist?
I don't know. I don't know about story. I mean, I always loved I grew up on like Token Entry and like Warzone, like those old just all different types of band. But I'm an old head, so it's like. But yeah, like
it's-
People say Tommy. Tommy's like the Billy
Tommy
Joel of
Morgan,
Long
for sure,
Island.
yeah.
yeah. For
Yeah, as far as like a hardcore
I could,
lyricist.
yeah, I could say.
oh yeah, but I don't know. You go to Masala Majority?
Yeah.
I don't know, but is that like to me like that's not even hardcore to me. That's like
I
even
can
like
see- I
it's
can see
it's
that
it's
too.
like it's hardcore, but it's not like
Right.
I'm like the shit I'm talking about is like that
Yeah, like
not, yeah like
traditional
the
hardcore.
beat like the almost like the shit I played, the Discipline shit, and like I was in New Blood for a while with this VJ and the Levittown cats, but it was like more like those beat down but breakdowns, like those fucking those. We just wanted to have those fucking
Sure.
yeah, but
Davey from Promise Ring is a pretty decent storyteller.
Davey from Promise Ring.
Yeah, the Promise Ring, yeah.
He's a little word salad at times, I was going to say. Yeah.
Yes, but he goes for that.
Uh-huh.
I feel like he
But
goes
so
for that.
you would consider that hardcore too, though? Like I don't know, like that's
probably indie.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, I guess it's all
In the way that all DIY music is hardcore to some extent.
yeah. So yeah, I'm just thinking it in a different way. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Anyway.
so yeah, I don't know, and then I just played. I love music. I play all the time. So, I mean, I remember my folks saying when I was a kid, I couldn't, I didn't know how to. Even before I could like kind of talk, they were like, I was pointing to the record player and having them show me how to put, so I could just do it myself to put the records on and I would just sit on the couch and they said I would just bang my head to but that's why I just sit there and meditate, like just, and I did it, but whatever. It was always in, people that play that, it's some people just can't. They just always have a song in their head, So it's like,
You talk to any musician's parents, and they'll say, "Yeah, we knew from a young age that
yeah,
he loved music." Yeah.
yeah. And there's people that love it just as much that don't, necessarily pick up instruments and play, but they still have that same love for it too.
Yeah.
So I mean,
we've all talked to people who say, "Oh, I just put music on in the background," or like it's not important to me, and it's like, what the fuck? What are you talking about?
Well, you put it on the background, and it's like it's got to be important to you.
Yeah, that's a wild thing to me that there's people that don't like music.
Yeah.
Like someone said to me the other day, like, there's people that don't have an inner monologue, like there's no voice in
Oh,
their
yeah,
head
yeah, I
that's
heard
saying
that
like,
too. Yeah, that's
the
strange,
fuck is
yeah.
that like?
Yeah, you ask somebody what they listen to, and they're like, I don't know, whatever's on the radio.
Yeah.
It's like,
But
I have an inner group chat.
yeah, but that can almost explain like when you don't understand like bipolar disorder, like so that's like they have like two different inner monologues. So it's like so it's like everybody's different, I guess.
Absolutely.
I feel like I get that more than I get people that don't like music.
Cool.
But yeah.
Yeah. So when did you pick up guitar?
I was young. But there was a point. So I got it. I remember my first guitar. I got it. I was into early on. I was listening to a lot of metal, I guess, because I liked. I used to get records,
So you had a Charvel or a Jackson or something?
No, well, it was like,
BC
but
Rich possibly,
it had the cool,
possibly.
it had the cool headstock. It had the
pointy
pointy headstock.
Yeah.
But
It had to look evil.
But
on the
I
body.
kind of never like really played it. But I was, but I listened to everything. I was, but I was in the metal phase. But I used to get like Maiden records and the metal records all had the good. It was the artwork too. So it was like, so even when tapes and then it went to CDs, I was still buying vinyl because I just wanted the bigger pictures,
Sure.
And until I think the last Iron Maiden I got was Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, so it was apropos because
Same here.
it was
the last one I
Derek the Riggs. That was his last.
Not
like,
me, by the way.
Yeah, no. But that, and it had in the back. It had all the things. So like, I'm done buying vinyl now for a while.
And it kind of went hand in hand too with like all the horror movies and stuff that came out in the '80s too. Like,
That was my. Yeah, I'm a horror guy too. Like
Yeah.
that's my shtick. If you go into my little studio, my wife let me build a half garage, so I got I got masks, I got busts, I got just crazy stuff.
yes, he does. He's got some cool stuff down there too.
But like I said, I'm into hip hop. I'm into everything. Like I'm into I was always into all kinds of music. And when I was younger, I used to say I hate country. Like not because that was the thing. Every kid said that. But then I found like the drive-by truckers, and then before Jason Isbell got big. But I was like, this is kind of cool. It doesn't have that dumb twang. Like I just never liked that southern drawl stuff. But when it's like good, there is good country out there. And then it's like now it's just taking off. But that I don't know. I'm not into the pop country stuff. But yeah, like the songwriter, like almost like the folk, like
the
American.
songwriting is good songwriting. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
Yeah, it could be any genre for sure. And just the current band that you have now, the Pilot Program.
Yeah, yes.
Still active.
Yeah, we're still playing. A bunch of guys that, actually the bass player was in a band I was in. He played rhythm guitar, and they fall to pieces. But I asked him to do bass duties because, we didn't have anybody, and I don't know why, but it was, it was a weird switch for him. But now he's, he's been doing it for a while now, and
Shout out Jay Koza.
Yeah, Jay Koza and Justin. But I've been playing with them for a while, and we just write songs. I just like writing. That's my it's my outlet. Like, I just even when I like you said when he asked when I picked up guitar, it was acoustic, and I would listen to like Neil Young record. Actually, a buddy of mine's brother, he was in Cold Steel. It was a great metal band back in the day. But they were local, but so they had a EP, Dead by Dawn. It was about Evil Dead and stuff, but it was good metal. And he sat me and his brother in the room. I was a kid, and he's like, "Oh, this every chord is like there's 6 chords or 7 chords. Every song is written in these cowboy chords that they call them." So I wrote it down on a piece of paper. I had that one lesson. I took it home. I listened to all my the Harry Chapin, Jim Croce, Neil Young, and I figured it out like by ear. So I think Derek probably plays a similar way because we have I think we learn a lot by ear first, and then so we know what we want to hear. So we don't use traditional chords a lot, and we just make. And I was like, holy shit, you play that kind of weird way too. So like, there's. Yeah. But we kind of have the same but it's cool. But yeah, I don't know. There you go. I'm rambling, but
No, thanks. Good. All right, Derek, you're up.
I'm up.
Give us a little primer on yourself.
What do you want to know? Don't let me know.
Just
How'd I get in?
growing up, discovering music, getting into guitar.
Honestly, my first memories, the earliest memories that I have, is all based around music. My favorite my favorite band when I was a kid was the OJs. I remember specifically the album Ship Ahoy. I remember specifically my mom be like, he loves that album, because I used to just go and pick up that record and play that in the living room. But like I was a big OJs fan. My obvious album, I'm a black guy, so like the OJs, Spinners, Four Tops,
Like that Philly sound?
the Sam Cooke, all the like the 70s, 60s R&B and all that stuff was like very prevalent in my household. But with that being said, I'm the youngest of 5 boys, so that was like my mother's stuff. My two of my older brothers were pretty were way into music. My oldest brother was a jazz drummer. So at a little early age, I was hearing My Vision Orchestra. I was hearing Weather Report. I was hearing Bitches Brew. I was hearing all kinds of stuff. But with that being said, my brother Dion, though, he was the DJ. So this is this is pre hip hop records. So I remember my brothers DJing and guys coming to the house rapping over microphones. This is before there was even any hip hop records. So I'm just like, I have like all my childhood is music. Now with that being said, you have a brother that's a DJ. All you have is his records to listen to. So I'm a little kid. I'm just fucking listening to records. So I just absorbed so much stuff just from my older brothers. Also, like my whole family. My brother. My mother sang in the gospel choir. Brother was a jazz drummer. Other brother was a DJ, and then the other brother was more like a newer school DJ. And then there's me. So like I kind of like needed like to find my own thing, and somehow metal trickled into the black household. I have no idea how that happened, but I became a metalhead, and that became my thing. But like music has always been a major part of my life. And not even like we were speaking a little bit about like, music and like popular music and whatever. It was my music, all the music that I know was always underground. So I didn't even know like when people, because that's just like what I grew up on. So I didn't know what was popular. And when people was like, oh, you know this, I'm like, I have no idea what that is. But like you asked me like, I'm like, oh yeah, I know, that's Kraftwerk, or that's this band, or that's El Coco, or like whatever. I can tell you because that's where my whole like life like resided at.
Yeah, so that leads into my next question, I guess, is how did you discover local music and underground music on Long Island?
The king of Long Island, Fingers Metal Shop.
There you go.
Listen to Fingers Metal Shop, and
I'm sure you went to Agents of Fortune.
Oh my God, Agents of Fortune.
That's where I got all my records.
Dude, I actually have. I don't know. I could probably find it, but I got Grim Reaper signature from Agents of Fortune.
So many like.
Queensryche came to Agents of Fortune for Rage for Order.
That was in Massapequa?
Rage for
Agents of
Order
Fortune?
tour. I got that.
King Diamond was there.
Yes. So yeah, Agents of Fortune was like a huge store I used to go to back in the day. But what was the question about?
Just discovering local shows and local music.
Fingers Metal Shop. It was just like you hearing bands and you're like, oh, that band is from Long Island. They're playing local. Let me see if I can go see them. And you realize it's like a scene. Like for instance, the Crumbsuckers, Ludacris. Once I found out like Crumbsuckers and Ludacris were like from here, I was like, oh wait, no, I got to see these guys because I loved them because I thought they were like I don't know, I thought they were like the greatest band, and I'm like, oh wait, these guys like live a few towns away from me. So I started like going to see like those shows, and I was completely hooked.
Okay.
Completely hooked.
Yeah, it's always like we've talked about this before. It's mind blowing when like you discover like, oh, this band is within a mile of my house, and like
absolutely
they have like, records out. And,
yeah,
like,
totally.
People know them.
But what that does is it's great because in a sense because it inspires you to make you believe, oh, I can do that too because somebody
just going to say that it makes it seem possible.
Yeah,
it makes it seem possible.
100%.
I remember being 14 years old playing at the Roxy, and Fingers was announcing the bands. I was like, "Oh shit, it's the guy from WBAB." We made it.
Totally.
All right. So what were some of your first bands?
First kind of notable band, I was in this band called Basket Case. We used to, we were kind of like,
Green Day cover band.
no. Hilarious you say that because it's pre,
Yeah.
it's before Green Day.
The horror movie.
So it was after the
But
movie.
like,
Yeah.
no. By the way, I named the band, so I didn't name it because of the horror. I just
Okay.
because it's like. We used to call it Basket Case.
Yeah.
You call somebody crazy. This guy's Basket Case. So I was like, oh, Basket Case is a cool name for a band. So that's how that came about. But like, we were like, at the time, we were like, Mucky. I don't know if you got Mucky Pup.
Oh, yeah.
And all those like hardcore bands, but like kind of satirical at the time.
Yeah.
We were like one of those bands, and we actually did pretty well. We were we used to open up for everybody. We used to play at the Roxy all the time. We opened up for like Overkill, Sick of It All, so many bands. And a funny story to me personally is because like once I kind of like left the scene and I was DJing for a little while, I kind of came back after like 6 or so years after being like not being in the scene, really going to see a friend's band, going to see Neglect, and Gary, Kill Your Idols Gary, he was like, BC. I'm like, huh? What are you talking about? BC. I was like, what? It's like Basket Case. I was like, oh, it was so out of my head. But Gary, remember, because Gary, I know Gary back in the day from Leonard Hurst and a whole bunch of, Leonard Hurst. Yeah.
He's West Babylon, I think, right?
Well, like
Close
30,
enough,
but
yeah.
a lot of people, the 35th Street Deli was like a
I
meeting,
live
meeting
around the
place
block
for,
from there.
for a lot of places. I'm from Copic, but we used to cross Strongs to go to the 35th Street Deli. I hang out with all the metalheads over there.
All right.
He was also in Dearly Departed for a hot second.
Oh yeah,
Oh, you
I was
were?
in tail end of Daily Departed.
Okay. I didn't even know that.
I remember
didn't
that
see
too because I was like, dude, you guys want like.
That's why I hated it.
I was like, I was like, you guys want me to play? Meanwhile, in my head, I'm like, you guys want me to play? What do you guys really? Me? I was like, oh yeah, no problem. No problem. I got this in my head. I'm like, yeah.
It was nice having three guitars. That was fun. It was a luxury.
And I actually,
Yeah, for
honestly,
sure.
tell you the truth, you are a part of the reason why I felt comfortable because you weren't even there at the first rehearsal. We were playing, and then you came and you was like, "What the fuck is going on? It sounds great." And he was like, "Oh, there's 3 guitar players." I was like, and he was like, and that's the first time I was like actually introduced to Mike as like, "Hey, Mike, I'm Derek." He's like, "Well, fuck, yeah."
Yeah. Also, Revenge of the Dragon. You played it
Revenger,
for a while.
I was in Revenger Dragon for a little bit. Wiretap Crash, of course, was with my homie, longtime homie George Reynolds.
Yep.
Another guy who was like, love the dude.
Check out his episode if you haven't yet.
I have much respected, and also it's like I was like, play with you, huh? Really? Of course. And also too, it was like not to like go too crazy, but like I remember like the Basket Case band I was talking about, like Mind Over Matter, used to open up for a Basket Case. I remember there was a place in Levittown. It became like Moon Chamba Lounge and like several different places, but I remember playing there. And this is also Mind Over Matter Eddie Reyes days too as well. And then I was like, holy shit, these motherfuckers amazing. I was working at Tower Records and I was like, oh, this is fucking Mind Over Matter, whatever. And I open up, what's the band? It's the title track. Whatever the title track is. No, not that one.
The cut your skin into pieces, whatever, so off the skin.
Yeah.
That
Whatever.
one. Yeah.
Manipulation.
Auto Manipulation.
Yes,
Yeah.
Order Manipulation. Yes, that song. I literally played that right. I opened the CD up. Sorry, you guys didn't get a sale for that one, but I opened it up. I played it in the store. I was like,
Fucked up the sound scan real bad.
holy,
That's it.
totally, 100%.
Everything.
Holy shit! And still to this day, that riff and that song kind of like means something to me because I was like, holy shit, these motherfuckers did it. They did it. I mean, because like I don't know. I'm not a hater. I respect people around me that like do things. I was, holy shit, these motherfuckers did it. This shit is incredible. I was mind blown that the kids that I used to like hang out with that were just growing up and like the music was still like figuring it out. We were like the band at the time. They opened up, but like George and I always had a great relationship. That's why I kind of had been in 2 bands with him. But then when I opened up that CD and I played, I was like, holy shit, this is insane. This is some of the best shit I've ever heard. Like, period.
And it was so ahead of its time.
100%.
It still is.
100%.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
thanks.
yeah, that's it.
All right, Parker, you're up.
Now I'm
Pass
gonna
the mic, you know?
Yeah.
This is the worst rap cycle of all.
I'm ready.
0 mics in the source. Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right, Brian, give us a little background on yourself, how you got into local music and playing the drums.
Got into music through my older brother, who was a comic book fanatic, and we used to go to this place in Oceanside called Cosmic Comics, and it was a hike. So it was pretty much like 2 Beatles albums back to back, and since I was a little kid, I would pretty much fall asleep, and then somehow I would wake up and just be like, how do I know like the lyrics, and how can I like bang along to this Ringo guy's drum, because you were kind of like learning it like subliminally or whatever. It wasn't for like many of years after that till I actually got a drum set. My best friend got a guitar from like, I think Sears, when they were still selling them in like 9th grade. And he pretty much annoyed my parents. He was just like, well, now that I have a guitar, you got to buy this guy a drum set and we got to start a band and blah, blah, blah. So I got my first drum set in 94 when I was in 10th grade. And
Which you still play.
I actually, well, technically that's the second one. The first one was the one that I told you about. It was through a ad in Newsday I found it, and it was some overpriced whatever sparkle kit and blah, blah, blah. And I went down in the guy's basement, and I had no clue what I was looking at. I was like, hey, it looks good, man. Fucking $300. Mom and Dad's going to pay for it? Sure, blah, blah, blah. And brought it home, and like you would hit the cymbal, and it would just fall over. Just the stand would like, you would step on the pedal of the hi-hat, and it would just break. There was no fucking, no such thing. So finally, like, and then I got a double bass pedal from, what was that music store that was like down the block from Mulcahy's on the same side?
Monster Music? Or
Is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I got my first double bass pedal from there, and like, what a fucking piece of shit this thing was. Like, it was almost like it was broken. It like didn't fucking work, this thing. So, and I'm trying to like, now I'm getting into like Metallica and heavier stuff, and I'm like, I just want to play this fucking one song, man. Like, I just want to do the and like this pedal just keeps
everyone's first attempt at double bass.
yeah, and like this
Everyone.
pedal just keeps fucking falling apart or whatever. Yeah, so originally, so now at this point I was taking drum lessons from Scott Groovemaster Foley. Thank you very much, wherever that guy is. He played in like a Christian band called The Ark. And
Nice.
yeah, 3-piece Christian band. And he charged back in 94, he charged $25 a half an hour. It was fucking big money back then, you know?
Yeah.
And I was actually taking a drum lesson when Kurt Cobain shot himself. Because I remember my fucking sister
That's
burst.
why he did it?
It might have been fucking overpriced, man. Overpriced. Yeah. So,
I would just say, no, I've never heard Foley after Groove Master ever into my whole entire life until today.
Groovemaster Foley.
Mr. Foley.
Shout out.
Shout out. Yeah.
So he was trying to give me drum lessons, and like I'm playing on this kit that's just falling apart, and he's just like, dude, like I don't want to be a dick, like, but I can't really like teach you on this shit. Like you got to get some like workable equipment. So I went to, I think it was my first visit actually to Long Island Drum Center, and it was probably my 16th birthday or right after my 16th birthday, and I thought all I was going in there for was like a brand new hi-hat stand. That's all that he wanted me to get. Everything else we could work around, and then like I'm looking around, and that's when I saw fucking Big Blue, man, my fucking Pearl Export just just sitting there, and there was something about that girl. She was, and my father came over, and he was just like, he's like, how much for this? And he's like, can I buy this one, like the floor model? And they're like, well, yeah, it's cheaper if you do that, and blah blah blah. So I took my piece of shit set, which I think I got like a whopping $75 for, which was like, highway robbery. And I bring home this brand new fucking drum set. And I remember my father gave me like, it was the typical like, here's $20, kid. Like, invite some friends over. Me and your mother are going out and fucking play fucking music or whatever. So then I just started playing, and like that formed into my first band, which was this band called Remorse. And if you had to ask what it sounded like, it was pretty progressive. So it was like a cross between like Queensryche and like Dream Theater, because like we were like, if we're gonna be like musicians, let's be like the best musicians that like we can be. So like every weekend practice, every snowstorm that school canceled practice. Like we were practicing like probably like 5 to 6 hours like a weekend. And, then we got, like, an actual band together, like a second guitarist, a singer. And then at this point, I started watching, like, Megadeth videos and stuff like that. And I'm like, this set's too small, man. Like, I need, like, a bigger drum. Like, I need, like, a second kick drum or something, man. Yeah. So then, like, I got, like, my 8 and 10 toms. So then I had my 8, 10, 12, 13 rack toms going. And then, so we played through high school. We actually played the Roxy 4 times. And funny enough, we used to play with this band called Suspect 7. And 2 of those guys wound up forming Sky Came Falling with me, because we played together and those 2 bands broke up. And we were like, why don't we, we always used to play 2 different sounding bands, but we were just friendly and had good chemistry and blah, blah, blah. But I remember graduating high school, my mother was just like, all right, you could either get a car or I can buy you this rack system that the guy from Megadeth uses. Because I was looking at this Nick Menza crazy, like, chain hanger. So I went with the fucking rack system.
The chains.
Which I used for, like, 2 shows, I think. Because I'm setting this thing up, and I'm like, why did I get this thing? Yeah. Like, this guy's got roadies, and here I'm about to play the fucking Lindenhurst VFW with fucking Millhouse, and everybody's looking at me because I'm trying to set this fucking rack system up. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting that Sky Came Falling came from Suspect 7 and your
Yeah.
band, which was more metal, because like Sky Came Falling is kind of influential in the way that like nobody was really doing like the half metal, half screamo thing at the time. So like it makes sense that those 2 bands coming together would form, would create that sound.
Because when I was, I first got into like, I think my first like hardcore show was around 10th grade, and kind of like Mike, like 2 of the guys that were in Remorse, they call me up and they're like, they went to a talent show, and I'm like, oh, how was the talent show? Was there any good bands? And they're like, dude, this fucking one band was fucking like unreal. Like they were fucking heavy, and this guy was screaming and singing, but like there was one like really weird thing about them. And I'm like, what was so weird about him? He goes, they don't have a bass player. And I'm like, what the fuck are they called? He goes, Vision of Disorder. And then the next day, I, like Mike, went to the Right Track Inn, showed up, and there was, from what I remember, I think it was VOD 25 to Life, and it might have even been the Loyal to None split 7-inch release. It might have been that. And I'm like, who the fuck are all these kids? What are these shirts they're wearing? How did they know these bands? How did they know the lyrics? Like, what is this? So I mean, like, and then from then on, I was just like, all right, I got to track down, like, all these bands of T-shirts people are wearing and blah, blah, blah. And, like, it's funny because Mike Dubin posted the first Inside CD, like, last week. And I was like, holy shit, I remember going to a store in Sunrise Mall called Animal House. Yeah. And I think the Corrigan sister worked there, right?
There
you go.
Regina, yeah.
So they had the red VOD shirt, so I got the red VOD shirt. I got the green Victory Records Bulldog shirt, and she's about to ring me up, and I was just like, oh shit, I'm like, Inside, I'm like, I just saw that band, like, let me get that. And she's just like, really? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, that's my fucking brother's band. And I'm like, yeah, give me that. Like, I want that. You know? And then, like, from on out there, like, it was just, like, Slip Disc, Looney Tunes, the Victory catalog, Lumberjack.
Very distro.
Yeah, like, all that shit. You know?
I have a pretty funny story about when you talk about VOD without a bass player. Because actually, when I went to my second time in college, I was in Nassau. I was like whatever, but I was in Nassau, and I was at the Brick Cafe. Was like the cool place where all the cool people hung out. So that's where I first met Tim. No idea who VOD was, whatever. But like, this is also the time where the scene is changing. Pearl Jam is like becoming thing. Like Alice in Chains. Like I'm a little out of I'm a little post hardcore, meaning like mentally. So like I don't want to be in this hardcore type. Like I don't want to be in a hardcore band. So there's two guys that want to do like some Pearl Jam-y, whatever, Stone Temple Pilots-y, whatever type thing. Tim was like, "You want to try out for us, VOD?" And I was like, I'm doing this thing with these guys. Now, fast forward, like because I worked at Tower Records. I was working at Sam Goody, but I worked at Tower Records later on. And I was working there, and I kept seeing all these dudes coming with these VOD shirts. I'm like, there's no way. That's that fucking VOD. Fucking Tim fucking Brick Cafe. There's no way. And I just kept seeing him. And it was like dope shirts too. It was like the regular black shirt. It was like yellow. And like
Full
dope
color,
colors.
yeah.
I was like, there's no fucking way. That's the same band. Oh yeah, and then this is also the time I was like DJing a lot in the city, so I hadn't been going to like hardcore shows. And my friends like, "Oh, Sick of It All is playing. Fuck P-Wack." I'm like, "All right, let's go." But like, Skull said like to open up for VOD. I was like, "What? Shut up! Shut the fuck up!" Sick of It All's opening for VOD. I went to see Sick of It All.
1,000 people.
Crushed
there.
it.
Yeah.
Sick of It All crushed it as they always do. That's probably my favorite hardcore band, other than Bad Brains. But they're like Bad Brains is whatever.
Yeah.
And then VOD proceeded to come in and just destroy shit. I'm like, yeah, that's fucking Tim and those motherfuckers from the Brick, and they just destroy shit. And also, the funny thing too is like I had introduced this guy Rob York to at the time, you know Rob? Of course. At the time, like he used to go to the Brick Cafe, and I was good friends with Mike Ledger at the time, who was a tattoo artist. He's the one who did both of my tattoos.
He was the guy.
So I introduced Mike Ledger to all of those VOD. Well, I introduced to Mike York. Mike York introduced him to. You're right. Rob York. I introduced to Rob, and then into the whole crew. So like, but they like shout out to like and then probably Tim and those dudes will never remember that story, but I remember it because I blew an opportunity for these goofy dudes that wanted to do Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilot stuff, and lo and behold, Tim and those motherfuckers were like brewing some fucking serious shit, and all it took me like a year later, and I was like, wait, literally a year later, I was like, wait, those shirts, and like really, like what really hit me was the shirts, started seeing like yellow. The blue, I was like, that can't be that guy from the Brick Cafe. And then I saw him, I was like, holy shit. And then also, too, he grew dreads. He started dreading his hair at the time, so I was like, that's that motherfucker. He did it. He did it.
Your life would have taken a much different turn. You'd have been on Ozfest a few years later.
But with that being said, it's like, it's all love and respect, because I respect and show love to anybody from the scene anywhere that I've had a conversation with that's done big things that are doing it. It's like there's no hate or no. I was like, oh yes, these guys are doing it. Like I'm a fan. I'm totally a fan.
What's the dude that was playing? He was in with George. He was in the band with George. The Day in the Life with George. Josh.
John?
Josh. Yeah. He was playing with VO. Like to see him when they asked him to play. I'm like, oh, because I'm like that's awesome. Like because it's like a.
I worked with Josh. Josh worked at Tower Records with me.
But everybody like kind of, it's like a scene. Everybody kind of knows in it. Like to see him playing with them, it's like, oh, that's awesome. When they came back again for a while, I'm like, oh, and he's, he crushed it. But it's just like a small like. Do you remember I remember Carmusi, the drummer from. Remember, I think it was Carmusi, the Day in the Life drummer. What's his name?
I remember the Day in the Life.
I remember a lot of those dudes.
Did he play Filter after that? That's something I heard back in the day. It could
But
may or may not be true.
I just remember I used to hang out, like, they were local guys, so we'd hang out at the bar. Like, we were all, musicians.
At the time, I was dipping my toes in the Long Island hardcore scene because I was DJing so much in the city. So I was just really wanted to Day in Life, Jordan, Airtime, like I was like picking on to like the popular things and the things that were happening. So there's a lot of stuff that I kind of like missed out on that I found like later on that I was like, oh, these guys are like.
But just to wrap up with Sky Came Falling. Yeah. Sorry, Brian.
All good.
So Sky Came Falling did a bunch of touring back in the day. It was on Ferret Records. Yep. Yeah. So that kind of wound down and became The Sleeping sometime in the mid-aughts.
I left in 2002, and then they had, I think, 3 drummers after me. And then it's funny, they played their last show at Hellfest 2003, and I showed up, and I was just like, well, it sucks that they're breaking up and blah, blah, blah. I was like, maybe I'll go there and, like, maybe I'll, like, start buttering up, like, some of the guys, and maybe we'll start, like, something new or whatever. So, like, I'm at the show or whatever, and, like, I see, like, Cameron, like, taking out shirts, and I'm like, what the fuck is this kid doing? He starts putting them on the table, and I point, and I'm like, yo, what's The Sleeping? He's like, that's our new band. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I fucking missed it, man. They did a fucking band already. So.
Yeah, and they got pretty big for a while.
Yeah. And I mean, like, as far as me then, like, after that, like, I didn't do anything for, I did, like, a short-lived band with Chris called Farewell Tide, and, like, we didn't even play a show. We did not, like, we wrote a couple songs, but, like, nothing happened. We never played anything. And then, like, the first Sky Came Falling reunion was supposed to happen, I think, in 2010, and something happened with Cameron because at that point, that's when he was still living in England, and 2011 is when the first one happened. And that was, like, we co-headlined the first day of the first Long Island Fest. And we were supposed to play somewhere, and they moved it, like, I think 2 hours before the show, they moved it out east. And luckily, I think there was still like 300 kids fucking showed up, which was cool. And then 2012, we did like a weekend with Incendiary, which was great. When Incendiary was like, they had a name out, but they're not the monster that they are now. And then 2015, we did AMH. And after that AMH show, like, a lot of people don't know, like, we had such a good time that, like, we actually sat down and we were like, shit, man, like, maybe we should, like, do this again. And we actually, like, we probably had, I'm not even joking, probably 6 or 7 new songs that never got recorded, obviously not released. And then, like, at that point, like, a few of us were just like, yeah, like, it sounds good on paper, but, like, I don't know, just, like, doing this thing, like, I don't know if we can do it. And then it just kind of popped up again, recently for these Warsaw shows because, 1021 was never on vinyl. That was, like, the big thing. Like, it was supposed to come out on Ferret. Like, Jake Bannon actually did the original artwork. And I think we paid him, like, $300 because he was, like, a nobody back then. So that was the main, I guess, fight that we were going through now was just like, how do we fucking do this thing? And now it's pretty much just like, not that we control everything, but in a sense we do. It's like we can do whatever we want now. Like if we get offered a show and we can play it, we'll play it. If we can't, like maybe we'll do the next one.
That's the thing. Like, if most of the band are still alive and playing, like no band is ever really broken up.
No.
You can...
Yeah.
You could just be a casual band.
Yeah. And I mean, like, all that I'm trying to do now is, like, make back all the time that I lost when I quit the band. Because, like, when I left, like, not to say that, like, I missed out on the good shows, but, like, that's when they started playing, like, the bigger shows. And, like, I missed out on Warped Tour and, Europe and stuff like that. So, like, the fact that, we're going to do Furnace Fest this year, like, I'm super excited because they did that back in 2002 when I was already out of the band.
Really cool lineup that day, too.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so that brings us to this band, Ellis Redding. So we can freestyle it with whoever's talking now. But how did you guys all come together and decide to start a new thing?
You want to do that, Hess, or you want me to do it? Okay, so Hess and I work together, and we both decided to take defensive driving at work the same day, just completely not knowing it. So we're sitting next to each other. At that point, I'm doing nothing, playing in nothing, because the band that I did after Sky Came Falling was this very short-lived project called Anoint the Sick, and broke up during COVID, and kind of like, well, I should say I got kicked out during COVID, and then they became a band called Death Spiral, and kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, so I didn't really want to do anything. So then, I'm sitting next to Joe, and he goes, "Hey, like, would you ever want to like do anything?" Like,
well, it was because now our bass player's missing. So,
yes, yeah.
So Joey, so it was actually Joey because with Anoint the Sick,
Yeah.
I knew Joey.
Yes,
the
that's
bass player,
right.
so I know Joey.
yeah,
So everyone knows there is a fifth member who's not present.
Yes,
He's not
yeah.
here. He's away.
he's on vacation. Yeah,
But
That's good because
so-
there would be two Joes and it would just be
So
chaos.
yeah. So
Too many Joes.
yeah.
he so I knew him back in the day, like just he was like I don't know how I exactly know him, maybe I don't know, but I know he played and he's younger than me, but he's good, and I know they were looking for a bass player. They Anointed Sick.
Yep.
And so I'm like, oh, he would fit really good with
Yeah.
that. So I was like kind of like the matchmaker, a little not a matchmaker, but I was like, oh, yo. I kind of hooked them up,
Yeah.
and it worked out really well.
Yeah.
Well, what's the story? You said he had a shirt.
Well, I remember like I'm looking him up, and I'm like, "Who's this fucking Joey
He
kid?" I'm
said
like,
he walked in with a shirt. You're like, oh, yeah.
Well, he I opened the front door of my house, and he's wearing an Ignite shirt, and I'm just like, I fucking hate. I either said I fucking hate that band, or I said that's my wife's favorite band. So either way, like,
But regardless, so it worked out. They were in a band. So
Yeah.
and then the band disbanded, broke up, whatever.
no,
And then so Joey hit me up. He's like, yo, the band's not working. Oh, I guess Death Spiral broke up
Yeah.
too. And he said. He's like, oh, I'm looking to play again, and you did a good job last time. He's like, if you know anybody, just keep your ear to the ground. And this was like 2 weeks or a week before we had the drive,
Defensive driving,
what
yeah.
he's talking about.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, so what happened with that band? Like, were you guys cool
yeah,
with each other?
and
He's
I
like,
had no
he's like-
clue that Joey left until he told me that.
But I was like,
You know.
are you and Joey cool? He's like, yeah. I'm like, why don't we just all get, like,
Yeah.
me, you, us three get together and fucking,
Yeah.
And
And then he brought up Derek, and I was just like, "Oh fuck!" I'm like, "I know that
'cause me
fucking."
and Derek have
And now I'm like, "I know that fucking dude."
Basket case.
Yeah, BC.
It's funny. I've known Derek like not even through music, through like friends. Like we used to go to the same house parties in Amityville, like when we, yeah. So it wasn't even like but like we were into music, but it wasn't like more But we always talked about it. And we're like, oh, let's do something.
You know how it is. You talk shit like, oh,
Well, let's do something.
Yeah.
For like fucking 30 years.
And you wake up and forget it the next day. Yeah.
Nah. I had great drunken conversations back when I did drink with Derek at Beery's for like 2 hours about like Merciful Fate, just like 2 hour. And I'm like, dude, if I can have a good time like talking to this guy, like playing music is just gonna be a fucking blast, And then so then we had a guy singing who didn't work out, blah blah blah. And it's funny because I went to a barbecue that Hess was at as well, and I'm talking to this guy, another Brian who was there, who plays in this band, Black Suit Youth, and he goes, well, who's singing for the band? And I said the person's name, and he had a lot of negative stuff to say about the guy. And I said, look, I don't really know him. I'm trying to give him a chance, and blah, blah, blah. And I literally said to the guy, I was like, well, who the fuck else am I going to get to sing? And without even missing a beat, he goes, I don't know, ask fucking Mike Malamo. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, that's a fucking great idea. And at that point, my son and his daughter were doing soccer. So I used to see him like every Sunday, like on the soccer field. So that's like when I approached him and I was like, hey man, would you ever want to like I know you're doing Star Harbor, like I know you're busy, we're all busy, but like, would you ever want to like think about doing something? And then that was kind of it.
I have to say, I think the whole thing, it was always a casual kind of thing, and it
Yeah.
still is. It's like there's no egos, it's just like, oh, we just want to makes write good stuff, and just there was never no
So
pressure.
defensive driving, children's soccer, and merciful fate.
That's how it came together.
Reason why.
That's it. That's it.
But yeah, it was all
Those are the 3 keys.
That's it. Yeah. Okay. So how's like the writing process been?
I think for me it's been fucking great because this is the first band I've ever been in that both guitar players write. Like, I've never been in a band like that. Any band, like my first band, Sky Came Falling, nothing. So it's great because it's normally, like, I don't know if it's just timing wise or what. Like, Hess writes one, Derek writes one, Darius writes one, literally back and forth.
Together, which is great.
Yeah.
That's what.
I can somewhat agree too, because I think you and I knew that we were like similar stylistically initially, but I think it's starting to come to fruition. But I was a little nervous at the beginning because I hadn't really played in a band and also like writing stuff, because it was like such a long time for me to write stuff. And I was like, I wanted to like get back into the whole writing stuff. But once I got like some validation from you guys, like, oh, these things, like, oh, your songs. It's like when I came back, it was like, all right, I'm playing with you guys. I'm playing with Daily Departed. I'm not trying to like, hey guys, how about this chord progression? Let's do this. Like, no, like once I came back in the scene, I was like playing with George. I'm playing with Alex from Movie Life. I'm playing with
Heavy hitters,
you.
yeah.
I'm playing with Joe Rubino. I'm playing with guys that I respect. So I'm like, I'm just trying to get in where I fit in. So like my confidence level for like songwriting really wasn't like there. But like at this particular point, like once I started to get a little validation from other people, that made it feel like good. But like one thing, like Mike, again, you and I talk a lot of shit. Mike and I talk a lot of shit for the year. Like, we're gonna do something like electronic shit, all kinds of stuff. We've always had like a great rapport, and like, and by the way, that's probably still going to happen. But we've always had a great, like, we wanted to do something, and once this was a possibility, I was like super psyched because I've been in the rehearsals. I know what he's about. I know his, I was just excited that like I could actually play with somebody that I wanted to like play with for a long time.
One thing I would say, definitely like
Everybody's it's just laid back. It's not like there's no pressure. There's no like we're just having fun, and that's what.
best way to do it.
Yeah, it's like it's not. There's nobody's like trying to take control. Nobody, and everything's malleable. I got this idea, and we all try to let's
Yeah, it's different than when you were younger and you were really going for it and like trying to make something of yourselves. Like there's a lot more egos clashing and a lot more like, no, we have to do it this way. Whereas now you'll just let something fly, like it's not worth arguing over,
When he asked me to be in the band, he told me who the guys in the band were, and at that, like, I don't even think I asked, what do you guys sound like? I was like, oh, those guys are in the band? Well, this is just going to be fun, regardless.
It is, yeah.
And I think that's kind of the way everybody, felt about it. And it is. It is. And they've been, super patient with me because it's, Star Harbor had a bunch of stuff going on. The Inside reunion was coming up. So, I haven't been a regular attendee at practice. So the songs were kind of...
Yeah, this is in the middle of two big Long Island bands reuniting. Sky King
Yeah,
Falling
right,
and
right,
Inside.
right,
But that also
right.
makes it, that gives it a little more push as far as, people being
And,
interested. in it, I think.
there's never been any pressure, and I think everybody feels the same way.
And absolutely, I think from a songwriting standpoint too, is it's no really pressure to like write specifically in any type of style. And one of the things that I used to, in a couple other bands that I was playing with prior, one of the things that used to bother me, for a person that tries to be original, is like, let's try to do a band like this, or let's try to write like that, or let's do that like that.
Yeah,
When
that's
you
the
say that
worst.
to me, it turns me off. I want to like write, like, listen, everything that you're going to do.
You gotta just do what
is
you
gonna
do and let it
be-
come out.
Gonna have some sort of smell of that thing. You're gonna have some sort of influence from whatever. But you, at some point, you want to flex your chest with something that is your own. That is definitively your own, and you want to live and die. For me personally, I want to live and die with. If I fail with my own, I fail with my own. If I succeeded with my own, I succeeded with my own. So that's kind of like what I was feeling with this particular group. Is like everybody was like had that same thought process. Like, hey, let's just jam and like let's just create something as opposed to like let's be this type of genre, that type of genre. And I think it's kind of like manifested itself into how we've songwritten or songwritten, whichever is proper. I think it's manifested in how we songwrite. There's no definitive way of how we songwrite. We're not trying to like. I know it's not even trying to be brag. It sounds like you're trying to brag, but it's not really bragging. It's just really it is what it is. There's no specific formula. There's no whatever. But I enjoy that because it's not formulaic, and things are more fresh and interesting.
And one thing I've always said, like I'm like I don't feel bad if I'm writing something and like if it's not working, like say it. Like that's what happens a lot of times too. People won't say. They'll feel bad. They don't want to hurt you. No, I'm like, listen, you don't like the riff. It's fine. It's not gonna hurt my feelings. You know, and that's the only. You have to get past that weird.
You can be
awkward,
direct in a
like,
band. It's very, very helpful.
Yeah, and still, yeah, it's like I'm just not into it. You know, like okay, I'm not. Don't be like, oh yeah, I like it just because you don't want to make me feel bad. I don't give a shit because I just want to write good songs and. It's not gonna kill me if you don't like that riff, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, you know.
If you're gonna be in a band, you have to have some level of ego. You're gonna have to. If you're gonna be in a good band,
And you have to get up on stage.
you're gonna have to have some
you know.
level of ego.
Yeah.
But you gotta also know when to fall back and listen to other people and say, hey, maybe four other people's opinions better than my one. Maybe I'm like not right, you know. And some of those things are like.
Yeah.
It's hard. Those things are hard to like, you know,
It's polyamory.
navigate when you're younger because you have attitudes and you think your way is your way. But I think what's been happening in this particular setting is like it's so refreshing in the sense that we'll actually sit there and like hash out every possibility. Like Brian might say, like, hey, let's try this way. Okay, let's do it. Joe might be like, let's try this. Okay, let's do it. It's like, just do it. Because you'll never know until you hear it. And if I hear Joe's version is better than my version, that's where you got to drop your ego. I'm like, okay, yeah, that shit hits so much better than what I was thinking of. So you drop your ego. Because you hopefully, at some point, like if your ego is that dope, you're going to come up with something at another time.
It's like, oh shit,
Or it may not necessarily at that time, at another time. So if you're that good at songwriting, if you're that good at whatever, you're gonna put in your weight. You're gonna have some sort of influence on what this is. But you don't have to have complete influence on what.
And like what you're saying, like when you can let your ego go, then you let it go and you hear it, and then you could hear something else that the other guy's idea, and then you could almost like I can't. I'm doing that, but
You got to be able to
work
look
off each other.
outside of
It's almost
yourself.
like
Yeah.
with like I'm gonna not a bad analogy, but like Lennon and McCarthy, like they was like it was almost like it was like oh, so they were like oh he's writing this, I gotta up one of them, but they do it in their own songs, like oh I gotta up him, but in the same sense I'm saying like if you don't let go of your fucking
It's a playing off of
think
each
my
other
idea-
kind of thing.
yeah.
Who's the Lennon and who's the McCartney of this band?
No,
I was gonna agree in 100% because like when
Yeah, I'm
when
a
I
George
first
guy.
joined this- by the way, Mike pointed themselves. By the way, I agree to a certain extent because when I joined the band, you came in with all the songs. I had no contribution at all, but I was like, I wanted to like place my mark somewhere on the band too. I wanted to songwrite, so I didn't want to be a rhythm guitar player or a session guitar player in the band. So I wanted to write songs.
Despite your
I
name.
didn't want that either.
So, but with that being said, it's like how good you wrote songs made me say, hey, if I'm going.
I gotta up this guy.
So
up.
no, you're to some degree, yeah, not necessarily up, but it's like if I'm gonna write songs, I'm not gonna come here like with bubblegum music. I'm gonna have to come with something that's good. I'm gonna have to work on that thing. I'm gonna have to work on it because like if someone is coming with good music, and I acknowledge it's good music, I'm like, oh, I gotta at least match that. So I think that's been a great dynamic between the two of us because like I'm trying to match him. And I feel like we're actually trying to match each other, which has become now we're actually writing together because we're starting to understand how we each have to play. Realize we play the same chords, we have similar thought
And
processes.
everybody else is Joey's involved with the writing. Everybody has a say, and everybody's putting it. That's what I love. Like,
Yeah.
it's just
So, yeah, a couple shows coming up next month. August 3rd is your first show at Beery's, and then August 18th at Sand City, the show John and I are putting on. Thank you guys for playing. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Before I get to my next question, I just wanted to say when Vito, I outed him for not knowing about sports. He confused Brett Saberhagen for Whitey Ford, which
No.
is easy thing to confuse.
No, I confused Brett Saberhagen's The Place.
So there is a building
for Whitey
right
Ford's
very
The
close to where
Place.
we were. There was a place called Whitey Ford's Hittin' Fun or something, like a birthday party fun zone place that was open when I was younger. He thought it was Brett Saberhagen's. Not the same guy. Very close. Played in the same era.
I'm sorry,
right?
Long Island.
But my question was going to be, everybody knows the worst part in being a band is naming your band. To be the worst and best part. Were there other names you guys had before you settled on what you
There
had?
was a ton
and
of names.
why not go for Andy Dufresne or Brooks?
So the problem with naming bands in this day and age is, we're in the age of Google. So if you want people to be able to find your band, you have to somehow, yes, you have to have some sort of separation. Not only could there be other bands with your band name, but there could be other entities or products that also have your name. And I was
The band live is really kicking themselves.
Yeah,
right now.
dude, you know what I'm
can't
saying?
Google that
You know what I'm
band.
saying? So, I was sitting around and I was watching Shawshank, and I was like, I just threw it out to these guys, and I expected them to be like, all right, but what if, and they were all just kind of like, okay. And I was like, oh, all right. And then all of a sudden there was like a logo, and I was like, all right, I guess that's what we'll call them. That's awesome.
Yeah. Shout out to Mariko for the logo.
I noticed that this is the second time you have titled something of a Stephen King character.
This is true. This is true. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But yes, I'm a huge Stephen King fan. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
Greatest American storyteller of all time.
So if anyone wants to follow you on Instagram, is it Ellis Redding Band or
I think it's, I think that's what I had to do was Ellis Redding Band.
Ellis Redding Band? And we'll link it all. Yeah, thanks for coming on, guys. Looking forward to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Long live the bench.